Welcome to Healed, Whole, Called, the podcast where stories of trauma meet the healing power of Jesus. Each week we journey with women who have walked through pain, wrestled through the process, and now stand in the promise of who God called them to be. This is more than storytelling. This is sacred space, where honesty is welcome, healing is possible, and hope is alive. And now, here's your host, Wendy Melrose.
Hey everybody, today I'm honored to welcome Shelley Ginn, a woman whose life is a walking miracle and a living testimony to sustaining grace of God. Shelley has endured more physically than most of us can even imagine. Struck by a car, surviving a ruptured aneurysm, and stroke on the operating table, multiple surgeries, and more broken bones than she can count. Medically speaking, she shouldn't be here, but she is. And yeah, it is her dear friend Stephanie, full of life, joy, and impact, who passed away after an incurable cancer diagnosis. Shelley doesn't shy away from asking the hard questions. Why her? Why am I still here? But rather than being crushed by the weight of that mystery, she found her anchor in Psalm 139:16. Trust that every day of our lives is written by God, down to every second. Shelley's story is one of pain, perspective, and perseverance, and her voice reminds us that even in loss, we can still sail on. Even in unanswered prayers, there can still be unwavering hope. Shelley, thank you for sharing your story and honoring the beautiful legacy of Stephanie with such grace and faith. So, hello.
Hi, how are you this morning?
I'm good. So let's start from like the beginning of where you would like to share. What was, share more about that moment and season of hardship you walked through.
That moment in season was 2019, and it was a hard year all the way around. I had a friend in a coma in the first part of the year, a mother who had open heart surgery, Stephanie's cancer diagnosis and major abdominal surgery that I had to leave right after to be with my mother. And as soon as I got back, I took her to her second chemo treatment. The next day is when I ended up in the hospital with a brain bleed that turned into three major surgeries, one ending up in the aneurysm eruption and clipping while I was on the table.
Wow.
I mean, it was a blessing that it happened when it did.
Right.
A complete blessing. I had to go through it, God saw to it that it happened at the perfect time.
Right.
I was in the hospital on an operating table with the clip already in my brain ready to go. So
Wow.
yes, it blew. Yes, I had a stroke, but the clip was in place and ready to go. I began to heal. Stephanie continued with her treatments, and I was there with her as soon as I could be, and dealing with my own healing.
Mm-hmm.
And then my gallbladder decided to almost explode
Oh my God.
the day after Christmas, and I had emergency surgery to remove it. I mean, 2019, right before COVID, was a pretty amazingly bad year.
Wow.
And I know 2020 was a bad year for the entire world, but for me, it was a calm in the storm.
Mm-hmm.
It was refreshing to be able to sit down and stay at home. And honestly, even though it was hard to write, to learn to write again, to train my brain to do that again, it gave me the time to do so. And to be with Stephanie with masks on, of course.
Yeah,
because
right.
because of her illness and because it was COVID.
Right,
I
right,
mean,
right.
regardless of whether it was COVID, because of her illness, I would have been wearing a mask
Right, right.
because she couldn't afford to get ill.
So then
So
how did all of that experience affect your identity or faith?
it strengthened it beyond anything I can hope to explain in spoken word, because I am so much better in written word.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what I hope anyone picks up from my books and discovers within its pages and any of my scribbles is that mercy breathes fresh life into sorrow and
Right.
pain.
Right.
And that's what I hope for anybody, whether they're in the midst of sorrow or not.
Right. Exactly. So I know that we were about to launch the book, Joy in the Morning, and that's MOU, not morning as in daylight. Um, and would you say writing that book about your journey with, we say Hannah in the book, um, was that part of your healing or a part of kind of like redemption for like sharing with others how there can be joy even though someone is dying?
I think it was a bit of both. It was healing in the sense that Stephanie, Hannah, and I not wrote it, but researched it and discussed it and debated it and lived it together while
Mm-hmm.
she was still alive. We grieved together for the 2.5 years she had
Right.
after her diagnosis, and spent many hours discussing God's mercy in her life and how blessed she felt. And don't get me wrong, there were days when when the pain was overwhelming. Her cancer treatment, her
Mm-hmm.
chemo was incredibly painful.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of the most painful cancer treatments there is for
Mm-hmm.
primary peritoneal cancer. Um, for a solid week, she had immense pain,
Mm.
and then it would diminish, and then she'd have a week of relatively no pain, and then start again.
Mm.
For I want my mind is probably this is from 2019, 2020, and because of my stroke I may not be remembering correctly, but I believe she had 6 treatments in the uh, initial treatment cycle.
Mm-hmm.
It may have been more, but I want to say 6. But she persevered, and she used mercy as a, well, in the book I used bandage as a metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
As a bandage can stop the bleeding,
Mm-hmm.
mercy can help stop sorrow, can help
Mm-hmm.
bind up sorrow. And I wrote down how I wrote that, and I, like I said, I speak better in words written than I do in words spoken, and so it's 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 not a cure, it's a process.
Right.
It's not a one and done scenario, it's a choose you this day scenario. So mercy is a bandage on the gaping wound of your grief.
Mm.
It's not, but you have to understand that it serves a purpose. Um, it it can, if allowed, diminish the flow and intensity of our tears and our pain,
Mm.
but it doesn't take them away. It
Right.
just it's just a it's a bandage.
Right. But a part of the healing process, not a bandage to cover up
Absolutely.
and ignore.
Exactly. You can't, just like a wound. You can put a bandage on it, but the wound is still there.
Mm-hmm.
It takes time to heal,
Right.
just as grief does.
Right.
I went through grief counseling. I am still in counseling
Mm-hmm.
that has a grief element to it. We still talk about Stephanie when those days hit,
Right.
because those days still hit, and it's
Right.
been 4 years
Right.
almost.
Yeah. So take us through the moment or process when things began to shift And what did that healing journey look like for not only for yourself physically, but spiritually and even emotionally for yourself?
When did they begin to shift? Really, when I sought counseling,
Mm,
because there were days afterwards that were so I was so bogged down in self,
mm-hmm,
so selfish, that I laid in bed and ignored my family, ignored myself,
mm-hmm,
ignored God, and just laid and wept and slept and grieved.
mm-hmm.
And I finally realized it took me longer than I had that I wish now. I hope now that if I have to go through this process again, and I'm not naive enough to think that I won't
Right.
have to go through this process again unless I'm the one to die first,
Mm-hmm.
which God may call me. I've lived through so much that He's saved me from. Um, I certainly may be the one next to be called, but if I'm not, then I certainly, as we all are, will live through tragedy and
Right.
have to deal with our share of grief. But if that happens, I'm hoping I've learned from this encounter with grief and know now what to do instead of laying in bed and feeling sorry for myself.
Right.
I liken it to a flat hand with a coin balanced in my hand. On one side is self pity, and one side is pride. And both are self focused emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And that coin is spinning on days. Some days it's held still by God's finger. But when we let, or when we take God's finger away, we let God take his finger away because of our our pride or our self pity, and let that coin fall either direction. We're not letting God be in control. But when we let God's finger rest on that coin, straight up and down, is
Mm-hmm.
when we live in humility,
Mm.
because we are neither in pride or self pity. We
Yeah.
let God control that, and that's when we live in humility and in God's will.
Right.
But we have to live that way, and I'm not saying that's easy, and I'm not saying
Mm-hmm.
I do it every day. But when I think about it, when I get deep in possibly grief or
Mm-hmm.
pride, for some reason God will bring that to mind, and I will physically lift my hand up and put my finger up as a representation of knowing that God is got his finger on that coin, and I can most of the time steady myself and pray my way back out of self-pity or pride,
Mm-hmm.
and learn from the experience.
So
But
then how
it
did
takes
the
a
Lord,
dedication.
yeah, how did the Lord meet you in that pain? Like, what do you specifically remember a time
Oh,
where he just met you and it just,
yes, I do. As a matter of fact, I was in the bathroom on the floor crying. I wanted to die. I just did not want to live anymore. I mean, I'd been best friends with Stephanie since we were in fifth grade, and I am 50, almost 58 now. At the time that she died, it was 2021, so I was 54 ish. I don't math in my head well, so if if you if you want to correct me, feel free.
no, it's
I'm
fine.
guessing 54. Um, we um we lived a long life together, And I was at the end of my rope when audibly in my head, not audibly in the air, I heard, Shelley, get up and get in the shower and contact your church because they have a care and counseling department and you need it now. And that scared me because I'm not sure that I wanted to be whole at that moment. It took me 2 days wrestling with God before I went online to the care and counseling tab and filled out all the painful paperwork. And I was contacted that day and assigned a licensed counselor, counselor that day, and we met that week and started grief counseling. And I can't tell you the relief I felt just filling out the paperwork. And then that I was not ignored for 2 weeks while they got their ducks in a row. It was immediate. And just laying it out on the line, God met me in my pain, gave me the resources to answer that pain and live with the pain and learn how to conquer the pain. And at least steady it and walk with it in a way that did not cripple me any longer. I did that grief therapy for over 8 months before I felt steady enough to move to every other week. And then we did that for every other week and stopped for a while when things got calm again, and then life happens again, and for other reasons I've picked up therapy again, and I'm seeing her every other week, and Stephanie comes up every once in a while, but it's not near as painful. In fact, I can bring up the happy memories and find joy in our journey again, and remember the happy moments, the joyful moments from our childhood all the way through the last vacation we took together, the year she died. Much earlier in the year she died, but we took a vacation to SeaWorld.
Oh, how fun.
Because she'd wanted to swim with the dolphins. We'd already done Disney in several years earlier and didn't want to do that again, so we went to SeaWorld and swam with the dolphins at Discovery Cove, and she shone. She smiled. You would not have known she was sick. I knew because she tired easily. And she took many vacations with her husband in those last 2.5 years. She got to go to South Africa. She took a train trip to San Francisco. They took the Continental train and to San Francisco and back. And I know I'm missing one. They took 3 or 4 vacations. Oh, a cruise. They took a cruise.
That's fun. Well, good memories. So was there anything that surprised you about the way God moved?
Surprised me. I think I was surprised by how the happy memories can be so happy now.
Yeah.
And not, I may be crying, but I'm not sad. I'm a crier. If you know me at all, you know I am a snot sob crier. It just is. Tears flow from me like water from a water fountain.
Uh-huh.
And it may not, and I'm not particularly sad right now.
Mm-hmm.
These are more happy tears than sad tears. These are memory tears.
Mm-hmm.
And memory tears can be the sweetest tears of all.
Yeah.
And I'm not I'm not ashamed of them. I'm not appalled by them. I'm just sharing them.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. So, where are you today, and how is God using these stories?
Well, right now he's using it in the publication of the book of Stephanie's story,
Mm-hmm.
which should be available relatively soon. I'm in the first edits, but we'll get there and it won't be much longer. Um, it's uh, it's a book that she and I researched and did together. I wrote because she helped me research, but she wasn't much of a writer.
Mm-hmm.
Her talents lay in arts and craft, and that woman was an arts and craft queen. But I am not. But we had many discussions on mercy
Mm-hmm.
through the 2.5 years, and I tried to find her voice as much as I could through this book
Mm-hmm.
and share her stories of how she shared her joy and her mercy.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know you're also working on kind of a memoir called Tapestry.
I
You want
am,
to
and
share a
she
little
shows
about
up in it too.
it? So share a little bit. I know that's going to be later in the year, but what
Yeah.
is your heart behind sharing Tapestry?
Well, that's more of a autobiography, but overlapping with overarching it is how God brought me through each season's storm or situation that I
Mhm.
was currently in. And but it's also how he refined me in each one.
Right.
It's not just a story because that just sounds boring, right? And I really hope not. So I, I I grew in mercy, love, joy, peace, patience, gentleness, faithfulness, goodness, kindness, and self-control. The fruits of the spirits have grown in me exponentially through every season of life.
Mm-hmm.
And each of these fruits have been refined in me in one way or another, usually more than one on each occasion, to bring about God's glory.
Right.
And it's a story of how that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, you'll laugh and cry, maybe roll your eyes at a time or two. You'll giggle, be embarrassed by me, possibly delight in, slightly weep over the many attributes of that book. But I hope that you will find yourself in it in maybe a small way.
Right. Well, and if anything, so often I think we live through life and we fail to see God move in it. But when we really sit and are still, we're like, wow, God, you showed up here, you showed up here, you showed up here, you showed up here. And just, those are the testimonies that when we share with the world, other people can be like, oh, wait, yeah, that, I mean, like God's moving in my life that way too. And even those who haven't come to Christ yet, can start to see, like, because here's the thing, whether you acknowledge he exists or not, he's still there. It doesn't, just because you do not acknowledge him doesn't mean it's not true.
Exactly.
So he's there for all of us, regardless if you acknowledge his existence. It's just whether we choose Jesus for our salvation. No one comes to the Father except through the Son. That's the missing piece that people can, at the end of life, can experience permanent pain or forever glory. But it's
Right.
your choice, not God's choice. No one is doing. God is not sending anyone to anywhere they didn't choose on their own. But
No.
when they hear our testimonies, your testimony, my testimony, every woman who's ever shared here their testimony, we can start to help people realize, hey, he is there. All you have to do is say, I surrender. So I would love for you to choose one of the two. Would you be willing to speak a word of encouragement, or would you prefer to pray over those who might be in a similar place?
I think I've written a word of encouragement, and I think
Okay,
I'd like to share that.
that'd be great.
Um, and and I'm just going to read it
That's fine.
because that's my go-to. My prayer is to convey not only God's gracious hand and mercy throughout my life, but to showcase his glory. He deserves all the praise I can muster for all he has saved me from, by, and through, and he deserves all the glory if and when the day I am not saved from the fiery trial, building my faith more, but by the fire straight into his loving arms. Then and only then will I be perfected, perfectly and perfectly glorified. I've already planned my funeral. I've just got a few people to talk to and videos to make to complete it. My plan is to leave this earth a broken sinner, saved by grace and bandaged together with God's mercy, enter heaven's gates and drop all that encumbers me spiritually, emotionally, and physically, and fall into the arms of Jesus and cry out my thanks in his sweet and warm embrace someday, someday.
That is so beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Shelley, for sharing your heart with us today. To our listeners, remember, your story isn't over. You are not disqualified by what you've been through or going through. With Jesus Christ, you are healed, whole, and called. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us on Healed, Whole, Called. If this episode spoke to your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe and share it with someone who needs to know that healing is possible, purpose is real, and God is still restoring. And before you go, visit resilience-press.com and download your free copy of Get to the Point of Self-Publishing, Wendy's guide to help you move from stuck to published with clarity and confidence. You'll find it in the free resources section. Until next time, stay rooted in truth, covered in grace, and always moving toward the promise.